Welcome to The Nation. I'm Jessy Chahal. This year marks 51 years of Malaysia-China relations, a milestone that highlights decades of diplomatic and economic cooperation. As both countries deepen their strategic ties, attention is now turning to economic zones and the revival of key projects like the Forest City. What does this mean for Malaysia's development and ambitions? Well, joining me today is Chris Tan, Managing Partner of Chur Associates, and here to break this topic down a little more and perhaps to even understand if China may be involved in this process. Well, let's zoom into this, Chris. What do you make of the tone and the outcomes of the Chinese Premier's visit, particularly in context of Malaysia's relationship with China out of this half a century?
I think it's important to know that the Malaysians have established a relationship with China even older than I am, right, 51 years. But actually, if you trace back, it's actually even further back. What we want to try and say is that this is modern China and Malaysia post-independence in 1974. That's how we started the diplomatic relationship. I think with the presidency's recent visit to the country, I think it signaled all very well as to that we like to strengthen for another 50 years of golden age, if like that. This will be, since we're putting it at 51, which means that this is the first year of the next 50.
Oh yeah.
So I think it is important to realize that there is a lot of benefits or a lot of advantage to have this relationship. Particularly in the form of investment, particularly in form of infra, tax, and everything else. I think it's useful for it to look at and how do we continue to harness this relationship.
Well, President X's tour included not just Malaysia but also Vietnam and Cambodia.
Yep.
What's the strategic picture here for China, in your opinion, and where does China sit within this combination?
China, as far as I'm concerned, this is not new for them, and they have actually started. China have traditionally very close with ASEAN, right? That's why even big part of ASEAN is actually centered around this place called South China Sea, right? For some reason, it's China, right? Sea, right? So for all intent and purposes, through their Belt and Road Initiative, they have actually around the world to set up a lot of business ties and all these things. So I'm just saying that it's not new. Being China, they have always been a big country 200 years ago, for 5,000 years. For example, they have been the leaders and they just continue. And this is, I would say that this is a comeback of China being the leader in stabilizing this very important world that is focusing on trade and the free of trade. Yes. You
mentioned China as ASEAN's friend. Yep. As well, an ally. Given that out of all the ASEAN countries, President Xi first visited our homeland here in Malaysia, and given that His Majesty the King was personally involved with this invitation as well, what kind of weight does this add to our bilateral projects, especially those that are tied to Johor?
I think, of course, we all know that our king at the moment is actually from Johor, and obviously there's a vested interest in relation to that. But I'm just saying that is good because Johor also being strategically placed from the federal government side in relation to the formation of the JSSEZ, Johor Singapore South SEZ, and this is actually seeded many years ago from the Iskandar Regional Development Authority. From the Iskandar region that we focus on how do we leverage. In the Malay saying is seperti aw dengan terbing, right? So we just cannot separate. And where else can you learn in relation to economic zone better than from China in relation to that? Their experience with Shenzhen, Hong Kong, right, is a great testament. Shenzhen from a small village, fishing village, to the global city that it is today, that's driven by tax and all these things. And being there in Shenzhen, I see it firsthand how it had transformed. Mm-hmm. And how the vibrancy of Hong Kong is being replicated and mirrored in Shenzhen. So we're hoping for the same that can happen with the help of the Chinese, right? And obviously we are trying to say that can we mirror Singapore in Johor, right, in that sense.
So in other words, it has been some time in the works already. The foundation has been laid there with Iskandar Malaysia as well. As someone who's been involved, what do you see as the key takeaways for Johor, for the nation, in light of the visit of a Chinese president?
I think it's important for us to know that I think that it also signal the timing of it is also quite interesting, because it's the height of the trade war and all these things. So, and we can see that, you know, given that this is a cooperation, the region we're talking about, special economic zone, the region within two countries and all this, and obviously China will add weight in terms of the infrastructures. What we're trying to say is that, you know, there's a saying in China that always say this. They say that before you can be rich and wealthy and prosper, you must first build the road. Right, so it's important that, you know, we know that China is leading technology in relation to train and whatnot. Their foray into rail link into the ASEAN is not new, with the Bandung and Jakarta high-speed rail, right? And now with the ECR, which the Chinese rail company is involved in, and I think HSR could be on the card, right? And therefore they will connect the whole place to the west of China. That is the focus at the moment. So I think it is have that significance in relation to that, and particularly in terms of tariffs. Then there is a play to say that, you know, we can leverage on the best of both worlds, or in this case, best of three worlds. Yeah.
You mentioned road, and of course, straight away, China's Belt and Road, that initiative comes to mind.
Yep.
That is something that has been termed a high quality as well. Then we zoom into initiatives or projects like Forest City. Give us an approximation of what does this mean in the long run, because His Majesty the King did say that Forest City is poised as the prime of the Belt and Road investment.
Okay, so let's put it this way. The Belt and Road investment, for all intents and purposes, is really they are trying to rebuild the Silk Road, right, in terms of whether it's by road or by rail, or actually also by the sea. They call it the Sea Silk Road, right? Now this today, even in the comprehensive partnership that we have actually entered into currently with the presidency, there's also an air Silk Road that's actually in place. So what I'm trying to say is, like, for example, in terms of Forest City, there's a lot of vested interest here, obviously, and China being the key developers involved in the Forest City originally is actually quite interesting, because it is where we need to do something. When you look at it, I don't know whether you've been to Forest City. I've been to many times. The infra is there, everything is ready, right? So all you need now is the soft element to facilitate the hardware there. So now I can see that the government is actively doing certain things, right, to make sure that there is content to be filled in Forest City.
What is the difference between the Special Economic Zone, the SEZ, and the Special Financial Zone, and how is this going to complement each other? Okay,
I would say that the SEZ, for all in that, is a bigger picture. Right, so the SEZ consists of course, many flagship zones in Johor, and obviously with the connection and proximity to Singapore. Right, that's one. But the Special Financial Zone is actually one of the flagship zones within the Special Economic Zone. And in this case, they are trying to make Forest City as an island, right, for all intents and purposes, to be good for financial services, and particularly in this whole concept of family offices. So I think this is the positioning. Like I said, you know, half of the work is done, so let's look at the other half. So if it's soft and hard, so I'm just saying now let's do the soft thing.
So the infrastructure is in place, it needs to be filled, and you say that both these economic zones and finance zones are also going to enable one another to complete that entire picture. We are looking at Malaysia and China with 51 years under the belt, and now moving forward with more initiatives, and of course from the visit as well. Recently we saw MOUs being signed, and that is also another significant and promising sign that a lot more is going to happen. Moving back to the Johor-Singapore Special Economic Zone, this aims to really enhance trade and investment cross-border. How does Forest City fit into this broader economic landscape with the Special Financial Zone as well on site?
Okay, let's put it this way. The Special Economic Zone, the best way that I can actually explain it to you, having experienced Shenzhen in the first place and whatnot, is just imagine European Union, right? The Euro zone at that moment. We started as EC, the European Economic Community, and then they go to European Union and become Eurozone. So what is that all about? It's about freedom of movement, right? So basically the fact that we have now using QR code to cross border, and then now we are thinking about how to clear the thing, having the RTS station here in this side of the town, and then how do we clear the thing, and having at the first hand experience to clear Shenzhen, Hong Kong in terms of their clearance of immigration. That gives an understanding that what they want to do is seamless, not just the crossing. It's also the seamless integration, for example, digital money, and also you don't have to go to money changer to change money and whatnot. So things like that will facilitate a lot of things. That's why the mirroring, in fact, is very important.
Right. So on that note then, what specific incentives are being offered in these zones, and why is it going to be a crowd puller?
All right. So I'll just add on a little bit on the special economic zone. That's the concept. And the special financing zone is another concept that's very important to make sure that this happens. Very simple. You need investment. You need money. Where do you get the money from? For example, so having the family office set up in special financial zone that can enjoy 0% tax if you qualify a certain thing, and asset under management under 30 million, for example, and part of it had to be in Malaysia, things like that will actually have the trickling effects, right, to ensure that the downstream, the service sector, the things and the talents developments can happen, right? And if you look at the flagship in the economic zone as well, you will realize that there are different focus and different industry. It's more than just data center, all right? There are also things like aerospace and whatnot that actually then can bring Malaysia up the value chain alongside and giving a better space and playing field for the Singaporean investment. So I think it's going to be win-win, no matter how you're going to look at it. But I think we know each other very well. I mean, theoretically, we like to make fun of each other, Singapore and Malaysian, but deep down, we are brothers, we are sisters in that sense.
Is there a timeline you have in mind, or something that you see maybe in the next 3 to 6 months that everything would really come into fruition in terms of the activity at Forest City, for example?
I think there is a timeline, all right? We don't expect it to happen right now. If you go, you'll probably be wondering, where's this vibrancy that I'm talking about, or that everything takes time, correct? And I think that is very different if you want to talk at the Shenzhen model and the Shenzhen Hong Kong model, and also compared to the JSSZ and Forest City in relation to that. I must say this to you, that is one country, two system. We're looking at two country, one system. And to complicate more, not only two country, we have the state and federal in Malaysia to work with. So effectively, there are three stakeholders in the whole thing. And plus, China, in Forest City, probably there is 4 stakeholders.
All right, on that note, we'll take a quick breather. We'll be right back on The Nation. Stay with us. Welcome back to The Nation. Joining me today is Kristan, Managing Partner of Chur Associates. We're talking about Malaysia, China, 51 years of bilateral relations, and the big question, what's next? We look at, of course, the recent visit of the Chinese President Xi Jinping to Malaysia, and we've also explored a little bit about what Forest City and other initiatives have to offer. How do the zones, we look at the special financial zone as well as the special economic zone, how do they help to position Johor as a competitive hub, not just for Malaysia or for Singapore, but for the region?
I think it's for the world, right? Let's put it this way. I think it is important. Having a financial zone simply means that the movement of fund, the money is important, because if you talk about investment, then how do you do it? Not just only for you to invest, other protection. Because you have to understand, at the end of the day, the family offices operator in the special financial zone is not just looking at return, right? How about the fact that, to hedge against inflation, to hedge against foreign exchange, right? So one of the issue with, for example, why family offices is naturally centered in Singapore, for example, as an international financial hub, is because they have a stable currency for a start, right? So the fact that over the past few months we have seen Malaysian ringgit strengthen, and if it stay that way and it stay stable, that will make us even more attractive. So to me, it is not just the investment in, but there's also value preservation. And given that a lot more thing that Johor can offer other than this, the more quantum computing, data center and everything else that is currently happening in Johor, there is a chance, right, for us to create such value and unlock certain value that is impossible to implement in Singapore, for example, and giving them a bigger space so they can do the expansion, right? So I think like I said, the trickle down effect is very important. And number two is that it's not just the valuable return, but also the value preservation.
You did speak about the infrastructure and the fact that the hardware is already there. It is now fueling it and bringing it to life with the software. From a legal perspective, in your experience, what are essential legal structures that need to be made to help support this thriving economic zone, financial zone?
I think very importantly is the movement of talents, movement of fund and everything is very important. Like for example, our country obviously is known to actually have currency control and everything else and whatnot. So how do you then float with the international market? So how do you then actually make sure that the movement is seamless? So I think the whole idea here is to harmonize and make sure that you don't get any hinges. So for example, if we can allow such smooth movement, that will be a key attraction. So how do you position Johor in relation to this as far as policymaker is concerned? Right now, as far as the SFZ is concerned, we are still waiting from the regulator, the SC side, to come and say, what are the detail? Although we know the big picture, what are the requirements, we are actually setting the barrier entry or the entry point lower than Singapore right now. So to me, we are trying to serve the underserved, right, in that sense, and yet these are still ultra high value network individual that have a lot of wealth for the purpose of spreading it, for hedging it, right, as also the preservation that actually could benefit the economic of Johor.
What would be the motivating factor? You talked about hedging and spreading that wealth as well. What would be the motivating factor for people like to come into these economic zones and financial zones?
To me, like I say, it's an assurance that the policy won't change. There's no flip-flop, right? I don't care whether you have a different government. At the end of the day, there's a change of regime and whatnot. It still remain safe. So I want to protect my money. I think let's put it this way. I have my money. I don't need more money, right? So first thing first is how do you preserve the value of my money? So again, that's why I say the forex section is very important. The inflation thing is very important and things like that, right? So having that is done, that already fit the bill, right? I want it to be safe, right? And then obviously if you can get me more return, that will add to the excitement.
So then how can a balance be struck between foreign investment, FDIs, while also ensuring that local businesses in Johor benefit? It seems visually that there's this wave coming into Johor, and how will that affect local businesses? I
think let's put it this way, we are looking at different target segment in that sense. For example, we're looking at big capital flowing in, right? To qualify for the family offices and whatnot, asset under management is 30 million ringgit, right? So to me is that's a lot of investment coming in. They are not here to fight with our SME or micro SME for all the business of those. They still need service, right, from these people. So that's where we will benefit. So to me is the mismatch and the matching, correct? So we are not actually, we are offering something else.
Matching the mismatched.
Correct. Yeah. So it means it's unmatched. I don't know how you want to say it,
okay.
but yeah.
Yes, that's right. Finding the gaps and ensuring that those are also filled with the right partners.
Right.
Moving forward, there's a lot of excitement, of course, at any sort of launch, and we've seen today as well, where we just came from the press conference, and there's a lot of excitement that's built around it. But another important point is sustainability. That's also, key. What ensures that this initiative will remain livable, functional, viable, credible for 5 to 10 years down the line?
I think let's put it this way, whatever the solution is, whatever there's offer now, it must be win-win, right? If everyone is earning well, if everyone is doing well, for all intent and purposes, the initiative will be sustained on its own, right? It is not about how much law you want to protect it, how you want to wrap it with extra insurance and whatnot. To me, it's about economic. So if you are, the cake is big enough and everyone is enjoying it, nobody will spoil the cakes.
But you did mention it's for more of a niche segment.
Yep.
So is this cake just an elitist cake, or is this cake that will be shared by everyone?
No, we are attracting the elitist segment, but the trickling down the effect is for everyone. Because at the end of the day, these people need services. Right? Think about it. When I said the family offices and whatnot, can you just imagine Crazy Rich Asian, you know, the movie, right? So as far as I'm concerned, these people are not interested in working. Right? If you are the Gen 2, Gen 3, Gen 4, whatever of this family, they are not, you know, the whole movie is not about them doing investment, it's about how they spend their money. Right? So at the end of the day, they need a group of people to manage their money, to offer the services, from education, right, to even softer things like hospital and whatnot, right? Now they need the quality of life. So let's put it this way, there's no competition for whether it's spread to the elitists, is to serve the so-called ultra high net worth
individuals. Well, finally, Chris, what would you say to those who are cautiously optimistic about this initiative and Johore's role in regional growth? Why should people be paying attention now?
I think the timing is just right. I mean, in that sense that, you know, we have been talking about it long time enough, and then since the late Patla time when the Iskandar region was announced and whatnot, it really captured our imagination. After all these years, we have learned throughout what is the mistake, and we have actually go and check out what work, what cannot work. So for this time, the cautious thing for us to do is really, to me, is to give it time. Right? To me, is that time is never a luxury in this sense, because time is a necessity. Because after all, I say 2 country, 1 system, you really have to see how to make it work. Yeah.
Well, Chris, thank you for coming in, of course, with our fascinating discussion and conversation on how strategic economic zones and the revival of Forest City could reshape Malaysia's investment landscape, especially as our ties with China enter a new chapter. Thank you for joining us, and do keep it locked on to Bernama TV for many more insights and interesting conversations coming your way. I'm Jessy Chahal. Thanks for watching.